Hi, and welcome to the BAknowledgeshare. In this episode, we talk about backlogs for business analysts and what it means to them. Backlogs are essentially a view or prioritized list of tasks or items that need to be completed by a team. Product backlogs or backlogs in general can be split up into product backlogs and sprint backlogs. A product backlog is essentially an itemized list of prioritized items that the business is looking to get completed versus a sprint backlog is more so for your technical team to determine what items or tasks need to be completed and how they're connected to the product backlog. That being said, when we talk about backlogs, an example over here could be, you are on an effort and the business would like a sales report to be built. So that could be an item that you include in a product backlog. Another item that could be included is maybe the business wants to create a sales report specifically for an audience. In this case, maybe a sales report for sales managers. So in that case, your view um, of your report would be different. The audience would be different. The data points or data elements that need to be extracted into this report would be different. So what I'm demonstrating here is a report, rather a product backlog that will highlight the priorities, the item number, the item, the whether requirements are needed, whether development is completed or status of that was testing. Now, if you notice over here, you may question why is development and testing included over here in the product backlog. Depending upon the complexity, if the complexity is low, some people use a product backlog, or some teams rather use a product backlog more of a status Excel spreadsheet. So it's one less document to produce and maintain. So it becomes a lot easier to maintain the status of the project as a whole within one product backlog. If you notice over here for those on YouTube, there is a visual of priority of technical priority as well as complexity. Let's tackle complexity. Complexity is essentially driven by the estimates that their technical team or that will provide. The priority from a business is provided by the business. It could be in the form of a high, medium, low priority, technical. You'd always want to sort of approach the technical team to understand what their priorities are to get a holistic view of the priorities in general. So there may be examples where, in the example mentioned earlier, is you have a item to deliver a sales report, and maybe the sales report is specifically for the sales representatives. So in that case, you would enter that specific item within the item column, um, and where we'd say building a sales report or building report. Now, in addition to that, you could include another set of items, a subset of items, where you capture the activities or tasks that need to be performed in order to generate that report. So in this case, we're saying you'd model the data, you would ingest the data into Excel. Maybe Excel is something that you're using as your front end for your sales reps to access the reports. And then the last one would be to design the Excel report. Now, the next step would be to go to the business and get the priority. So in this case, the last task could be testing the report, and then you would sort of go to the business and get the priority of what is the priority to build this report. As mentioned earlier, it could be a high, it could be a medium, or it could be a low priority. But the key is to really define what high, medium, and low mean. So, a high could be it's absolutely needed by the business. Medium would be yeah, they can work around and they have workarounds to get the data. And a low could be well, let's just do it later. You would also approach the technical team to get their priority because it really, when you look at a priority, you want to look at the priority holistically, really from a business perspective as well as a technical perspective. And then you would understand the complexity. So really you approach the technical team, your QA team or your testing to say, well, what's the effort involved? And then maybe complexity, the definition of complexity would be, well, I need, it would take about 10 hours to complete the work. So anything greater than or equal to 10 could be a high priority. That's sort of your definition. And just to sort of back up a little bit, when you talk about backlogs, they're really tied to the agile methodology. And when you talk about complexity, it's really however your team has determined estimating the work is what you would follow in terms of complexity or defining what complexity is. Now, listed over here are model data, ingest, design, and test. Many may argue, well, why is it in the product backlog? As I mentioned earlier, ideally you want to separate your product backlog from your sprint backlog. And let's see what a sprint backlog would look like. So maybe your sprint backlog would be a separate spreadsheet where you just maintain the activities that support each item or feature, as you would call it in Agile. And then you would take those activities and put them and divvy it up based on your sprints. Maybe your sprint one has modeling data. Maybe it's sprint two is where you ingest the data in Excel. So you would sort of have to understand what are the activities or tasks that you can split up in different sprints and work that way. So why are backlogs important for business analysts? So especially for business analysts that are working on data analytics projects, or maybe machine learning, or even data sciences or AI efforts, right? It's really to get an understanding or context of the effort. Because as a business analyst, depending upon the complexity of the project, you may be playing multiple roles. Maybe you're playing the role of a product owner. In that event, you would be managing and maintaining the backlog as well as gathering some requirements. So, in that sense, it really helps in understanding the big picture and what are the dependencies, constraints, assumptions that you need to create within the requirements in order to document your requirements. And a backlog becomes a key tool and a driver in understanding the big picture. Now, you as a business analyst are responsible for understanding the business requirements and translating them into technical requirements. So many times, you have the key to that knowledge, which other team members do not have. So you're essentially the glue. So in terms of how to create and manage a backlog, you want to include your scope that could come in the form of your item. Maybe you add a few details to get a high level scope. You would include the priorities as well as the estimates of the item or the effort, and then you would sort of review and keep updating that backlog. We went over what a sprint backlog is versus product backlog, as mentioned. Depending upon the complexity of the effort, the more complex, you would want to separate that sprint backlog from the product backlog and sort of keep it clean and organized. And this would sort of feed into the overall plan of delivering your sprint cycles. Product backlogs are critical in terms of also getting or having your team be on the same page in terms of what are the items coming up next. So maybe your technical team is very curious about what am I working in the next sprint. So that really helps you organize your work in terms of analysis, in terms of requirements. So Backlog is essentially a tool for business analysts to work on a lot of development projects, analytics, data sciences, and machine learning. It does provide a clear roadmap for a development team, and it really it could fall in your lap in terms of business analysis, depending upon how your team is structured. So if you do like what you see and what you hear, please do subscribe to this channel and support this channel by clicking the bell icon if you're on YouTube. If you are on a podcast listening to this, please do subscribe and download the episodes and help grow this channel. Thank you so much for listening.